My name is Lydia Peterson, and I come from Cape Town, South Africa. I work with marginalized communities, empowering them to be part of decision making processes that will impact their lives. In the 1920s, uranium was a byproduct from gold and copper mining, and it was exported globally. But historically, what happened was that South Africa embarked on a nuclear arms program. And with that said, we as South Africa, the government decided to build Koeberg, not to advance energy within South Africa, but also to advance the nuclear program. Mining affected communities are still being affected by the legacy of the uranium mining. Although it is a byproduct of gold and copper, there are existing uranium mines that are still producing uranium for the export market. And these communities are so affected by the conditions that they live under. There are dam tailings which affect them with respiratory diseases. There are cases where they say that the cancer has impacted very, very young people of the ages of 18. And this is historically what the government is allowing and not rehabilitating these communities so that they will have a sustainable life. It is all about profits above people, and it is still continuing until this day. Koeberg was sited in the 1960s. There were suitable sites, in their opinion, which they have decided that Koeberg is the best place because of the ocean and because of the location to build Koeberg. And this happened, the design of Koeberg happened in 1965, and it was built in the late 70s. There's conflicting stories about why the location for Koeberg was done at the time, because it was less populated at the time, as well as being away from the city centers. But during the years, the population growth became so apparent that many people decided that, hey, we don't want this on our doorstep. We need to start looking at the growth of the population and also the communities surrounding the nuclear plant, who are now starting to think that in the event of any nuclear incident at Koeberg, are we safe? What was not clear at the time is the situation with the nuclear waste. Where will it go? The Northern Cape community has been earmarked for a waste disposal site. And this has led to the siting of Falputs from 1986, the subsequent storage of nuclear waste at Falputs. Marginalized communities surrounding the Falputs disposal area were not consulted about what will be coming to their doorstep. And historically, that is what this is all about. How people were not consulted, how they were excluded from decision-making processes, ultimately for the environment and for public health. So the general public does not have the necessary tools to fully understand nuclear energy. They have been marginalized for so very long. And if I have to approach someone and ask, what do you think about nuclear? Like, what is nuclear? I don't know anything about nuclear. So this perception that the communities must speak about nuclear, accept nuclear, it takes away from, I don't know, I do not have the necessary information about nuclear to make an informed decision whether that is part of an energy mix, whether it will suit me or not. So the general public does not know so much about nuclear that they can engage meaningfully. South Africa at the moment is the only country on the African continent that has an operational nuclear power plant. Africa has been besieged by the narrative that nuclear energy is a form of security, it is a form of job creation, it's a form of sustainability. But nuclear is not needed. There are other sources that can generate far better electricity with less harm to the environment as well as to the public. Nuclear is an absolute false narrative and solution to our jet program here in South Africa, and I think worldwide as well. It is not just by switching on a switch and you have nuclear power. It comes from somewhere. And the nuclear fuel chain starts from uranium mining and the effects that it has on not only the environment, but as well as people. And it does not fit in with our climate goals, especially when you think of the amount of emissions coming from uranium mining contamination and also with the legacy of the nuclear waste. So you're looking at the start of the nuclear fuel chain, which is the uranium, and you're looking at the end product of this, which is the nuclear waste. So marginalized communities are bearing the brunt from the inception of nuclear energy until the disposal of the nuclear energy waste. But it is not a permanent solution, and this solution escapes the focus of the communities. Where will they be? Are we looked upon as decision makers in what we will receive in the end? Because we're looking at the beginning and it is uranium, we're looking at the end and we are still caught in the middle with no decision making coming from us. The Northern Cape people were furious to find out that Koeberg was extending the lifespan for another 20 years. They were not consulted at all or being told that, look, we are in the process of extending this for another 20 years, and nothing happened. So when they eventually found out about the extension, it clicked. There's more waste coming here for another 20 years. And how do they feel about that? They are absolutely devastated. First of all, it's a cycle of non-transparency, of not including the affected communities. And this is what is so upsetting for many, many communities within the Northern Cape, to think that there are even plans in place to bury the nuclear spent fuel at Valputs, whereas they had no consultation with the affected communities. To have nuclear as a part of our energy mix, it is not sustainable, it's not viable. And I personally feel that contributing less than 5% to the national grid and to the amount of money that was spent on refurbishing Koeberg to run for another 20 years, it is not viable and it's not sustainable, and it is not energy security. For most of the communities, they are already in the cycle of being unheard. So to tout oil and gas as a transitional energy source, it brings back to the beginning, where people are being offered and said, this is what you will be getting. But it's not our decision, because most of the communities surrounding the coast of South Africa are of the opinion there are other ways that we can secure energy for our communities as well. And oil and gas are now being touted as the game changer. It is now being said that the narrative is running around that there's job creation, that there is so many benefits with oil and gas. But if you look at a recent spillage, not even by drilling on the West Coast, it was an oil tanker that were caught up in a storm. And 5 months later, the communities were affected by an oil spill, and there's a moratorium on fishing indefinitely. So if you look at the context of this, it means that there is the possibility of a spill. The people will be affected. It will take away their livelihood. It will have an impact on agriculture as well as tourism. We have the resources, we have the means, we have the opportunity to explore renewable sources. Government would say, hey, look, we don't have the transmission lines to bring renewable energy online. But if we look at the investments that the country has secured already, and the bid windows for renewable energy, it doesn't come online. So who's not exploring the finance that the country needs? Who is putting a barrier there so that the communities will even look at, yeah, I'm getting electricity for way less that I'm supposed to pay. And naturally, the transition that will come with renewable energy can then enhance community, I would say, confidence, as well as looking at the holistic picture of what renewable energy could mean in our just energy transition.